okay, how do we get these governments, the U.S. government, our Senate, our Congress, to even understand what the fuck you guys do? Because here's the thing. I watched Mark Zuckerberg on Capitol Hill, right? Talking about Facebook. And this was just basic ads, just simple shit. There's no neural nets, nothing like that. And I remember, I think it was Orrin Hatch asked him, so how does Facebook make money? And right there, I was like, holy shit.
Right.
This dude is a senator in the United States, the most powerful country on the planet, and you don't even know how Facebook makes money? Huh?
It's,
God help him if Mark Zuckerberg have to explain like Facebook's reach, like what that even means,
Right. It's not a good look. I do think that with the proper information, we can make good decisions. So we've been proactive in reaching out to the powers that be to try and inform them of the limitations of this technology. And a lot of the concern is around bias, and it's it's age bias, it's race bias, ethnicity bias, and that's a solvable problem. And so the way to solve that is better data. So if you have better data going in, you're going to have better data output. If you have corrupt or unbalanced data going in, you're going to have that as the output. And so that's something that we've shown as an industry that we're advancing, that we're getting better at.
So that's one of the is that one of the big reasons why China is doing so well with artificial intelligence, is because they have so much people and they're able to take all this data, and then America, we really restricted in.
Correct. We're restricted in the way we can access data. They're not.
So does that mean that they will pass us at some point?
Oh, I think they're ahead of us in the development of artificial intelligence. I think they absolutely are ahead of us. But they're hyper focused on their region of the world. So they're much more accurate on their citizens than they are on citizens in the United States, because that's the data they collect. That's the data they train their algorithms on.
So I could run down the street in China, do all kinds of shit, and walk away.
I wouldn't do that.
I mean, I'm picking a random block. Hey, it was him, okay? Where the facial recognition proof? Oh, don't work on me. No shit. It was that dude. So it could work out like that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I still wouldn't advise it, but, it's just a matter of data collection and access to data. So, provided that we have balanced data in the geography that we're looking at deploying this technology, you're not going to run into those issues. So I think it's important for the lawmakers to understand the limitations and regulate accordingly. If they try to regulate without knowing what they're talking about,
that's where they are.
That's what happens in San Francisco. You ban people from using iPhones.
Because I heard the iPhone in the beginning, like Asians couldn't open their phones, right? It's a whole race of people. I'm like, oh my God.
Right.
Okay, so we've kind of solved that problem. So how do we keep up with China when we have so many roadblocks in front of us?
Yeah, I think the roadblocks are necessary right now. I think it's important for us to not stifle innovation or advancement of innovation, but also to be cautious about, once this is built, there's really no going back. And so, it's really important for us to take the proper precautions in the advancement of this technology, but while also thinking globally. And right now, I don't think we're thinking as globally as we need to be in the advancement of AI. So it's a difficult question to answer, because they're years ahead in data, and we need to catch up, and we need to surpass. So, it's a matter of how do we set the parameters right now to ensure that we're going to do it properly.
So facial. There are American companies helping China with their AI, right?
I don't
Supposedly.
know. I don't know.
We're
not
in the shadows.
Yeah.
Okay. But how is it that tech guys justify the way a country like that would use their data? Because they have the whole social credit system,
right? And
this really to keep their citizens in check. Like, two guys meeting, in some dark alley a few years ago, no one would know. But now with facial recognition, you're able to say, wait a minute, every time, Jim is here, Tom is here, they have to be meeting, because this is too much of a coincidence. Like a human would have never caught that.
Right. That's going back to correlation, so it's the identity piece, but then the correlation is the information you can collect on the side of that. I think it's important to note that China as a country thinks about the world differently than we do. So where we see surveillance and privacy, they may not believe that in the same way we do. They may have just grown up with that. Whether that's right or wrong is a very different conversation.
I know that's completely different culture.
But the culture is used to that. And I was over there in 2015 and 2017, and I asked about the same thing. I said, are you all concerned about this credit system or the facial recognition technology? And for the most part, they weren't. And I don't know if they were afraid to speak up, but for the most part, they were not as concerned as I would have thought, or as we project on the world that they should be. And I think it is because that's the way that they've grown up. That's the way they've always dealt with technology. And you look at something like their WeChat app, which is all of our social media, in one plus payment. It's an incredible tool, and you can use it for payment at a mom and pop liquor store, on a street in the middle, of I guess a very small city out there, which is still a couple million people. But the advancements that they have made in that their citizens see, I think, is pretty impressive. But again, it's a population of over 1 billion people, so it's a massive, massive place. And I just think it's different. We try to project our views on them and say this is wrong, and whether it's right or wrong again is a different conversation. But we would not be willing to help power that technology over there. We're very particular about who we will work with, and we've said no to people.
Company specifically,
correct,
Trueface.
correct.
Yeah.
And we said no to people. We'll continue to say no to people. We don't do work there, and so I think it's important that while regulation is happening, the companies that have the power to enable that type of use case or that type of technology really consider the ethical, boundaries that they want to set up. And there's some companies that will do it. And
what percentage of guys in tech would say, hey, this technology is definitely going to help, a government that doesn't necessarily believe in freedom and democracy, but I'll do it anyway? Like, what percentage of
I'd like to believe that it's low.
What's low? 20%?
No, I think it's less than that. I know the executives that we compete with, and all but one have drawn a pretty hard line saying we will not empower those. There's one company that's been in the news lately for not caring as much about how they collect data. And,
you want to say what that company
no,
is?
I don't.
Okay, cool. So I can Google it.
You can look it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
What should I Google, though? Which company sucks balls and willing to help a dictator? I'll write that down so we can Google that later. Go on.
So there's definitely, people out there that are more concerned about money than they are about ethical practices. But I do think that's a very small percentage of the technology providers.